Ladies and gentlemen, it is finally the end of 2017 and we've come to a conclusion of the year as we go into 2018, and joining me here today to discuss Dragon Ball Super in 2018 is Dragon Ball YouTuber EmoshIsLive, as we do want to go on ahead and recap both the good and the bad for Dragon Ball Super in 2017 as we go into 2018. Now, Emosh, there are so many things we can look forward to in the new year. We have the conclusion of the Tournament of Power, we have a brand new Dragon Ball movie, and of course, the introduction of a brand new arc as well. So I wanted to talk to you more or less in having to do the second annual recap and looking back how last year we said to ourselves, and I was watching our older video, how we had such high hopes for 2017, and for the most part, I think that 2017 did live up to its expectations in terms of what we wanted from the show, and I wanted to get your thoughts as to what you thought about 2017 collectively from Dragon Ball Super, if you enjoyed certain moments, if you hated certain moments, because the arc so far within the year has had its ups and downs, but now we're going into 2018, so to me, I wanted to get your thoughts on both the good and the bad from this year. I definitely feel like the show kind of started off on a very interesting note because this whole tournament was looming above our heads, but we didn't really know how we were going to be approaching this. And finally, we kicked off the tournament 6 months in July when it first started, and now 6 months later, we're finally entering the conclusion of the tournament. So how do you feel about 2017? What are your thoughts on the show, the things that you enjoy, the things that you didn't enjoy, and collectively, what are your thoughts going into 2018 in terms of predicting story, what you expect to see from character development with certain characters, you know, timelines, just the end of the tournament as a whole? What's your take on 2017, and what are your predictions for 2018?
Well, first off, I think the idea of the fan base, or let alone us, for example, as content creators, because we're fans too.
Yeah.
So I think that idea of the 2017, let alone the Universe Survival arc, for example, feeling underwhelming is mainly our fault. And I mean that as a fan base, not as a content creator, but as a fan base. Us as fans, we love the show. We love the brand. We love everything it has to represent. And as such, expectations by default are always going to be high. Right. And with that, it kind of comes to how everything is depicted once we actually see the episode. We're like, damn, I would have written this in a different way, or damn, I would have written this so much better. What the hell is going on over there at Toei Animation? What are these guys thinking, and all this other stuff? So that's natural. Nobody's ever going to feel like, you know, the year was perfect, and that's totally natural. And I think ultimately what it comes down to is it just goes to prove how much people love the brand and the show itself.
Yeah.
Coming from Dragon Ball, coming from Dragon Ball Z, going into Dragon Ball Super, the expectations are high, especially when you introduce god tier characters. And then we have the idea of not so much of a god tier character rivaling, if not stomping on a god tier character by default. These are where things become questionable. But when you look at it objectively from a marketing standpoint, it really comes down to, okay, well, marketing wise, they just introduced a new form. What are we going to get? Super Saiyan like 5 or something like that? It's, you know, this number game is getting a little too repetitive.
Right.
So we're not going to see Super Saiyan 4. We're not going to get Super Saiyan 5. So they introduced a whole new tier in general, which I was very pleased with. I love the idea of Super Saiyan God. Today I love it. I love the idea of Super Saiyan Blue is a little underwhelming, only because it didn't feel like it had that much of an impact, especially in Rival of F. Because Golden Frieza came from like Namek Mecha Frieza level to just stomping on Blue anyway.
Yeah.
So that was questionable. I get it for the sake of marketing, for the sake of bringing Frieza back, who by default is a highly marketable character. I understand it. But sometimes you can't really mix the idea of market value and fan service and then expect to get a positive result out of that. And I think 2017 is a good example of marketing and fan service. I think sometimes marketing became too much of a factor, and I think sometimes fan service became too much of a factor. For example, the Vegeta incident. When Vegeta debuted, and his long-awaited debut, right? Once we saw Potara on Zamasu and Goku Black, we immediately thought, well, we're gonna see Vegito, and a Vegito Blue at that. And then we saw him underwhelming, completely underwhelming. We go into the Universe Survival arc, for example. We didn't really expect to see Fusion. Then we see Kefla, who was amazing to me personally. I think the most disappointing thing for me is Kefla, not because of, you know, I loved her a lot, but I feel disappointed that so many people were backlashing towards Kefla, towards the idea of killing Khalif, let alone Kefla, especially Kefla, because she was amazing. She probably arguably brought some of the best content the Tournament of Power has had to offer outside of the 1 hour special. If you look at the 1 hour special, the first half of that episode was just Rubian. Like a large portion of that episode was Rubian. Then we go into the whole Ultra Instant Goku Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20. I think that was a hugely missed opportunity there. We didn't really see any instances of Goku even going Kaioken times 20 until it was mentioned. But yet in the University of 7 tournament, they made it apparent, especially the English dub version of it. You know, so people were praising it so much to the point where now you have to ask yourself, well, once the English dub catches up to that scene of Goku fighting Jiren, if it does, right? Hopefully it does, then it's gonna feel underwhelming. And because of that, they have to add extra dialogue or extra instances to make that scene really pop.
Yeah.
So like I said, there were a lot of instances where, you know, the Tournament of Power or just 2017 felt meh. But I will say right here and now that that's partially maybe my own fault for expecting too much of a show that for the most part came back for marketing, for a mixture of marketing aspects and a mixture of fan service. So there are, like I said, I'm highly satisfied with it. I loved it. I can't go into 2018 saying, nah, I don't have any high hopes for 2018, especially considering that we are getting a new movie in December 2018. That's a big thing. And because of that, it kind of makes us as content creators and as fans hopeful to know that because we're getting a movie in December of 2018, that more than likely we will get some content for the majority of 2018. So I think that is a good step in the right direction. I think getting this information now solidifies and gives us hope as a fan base to say, okay, you know what? We might not be entirely happy with the show, but at the same time, I would argue that more than half of the fan base would not want it to end right now, especially after the tournament. So going into 2018, I have high hopes. I don't have high expectations, but I do have high hopes in seeing a lot more content and seeing what they have to offer.
I really enjoyed how we got to see Goku and Vegeta fight off against Jiren, or at least, you know, for the most part, we're gonna get Vegeta fight Jiren in the new year. Vegeta having to square off against his own, you know, set of people that he was fighting, and we got to see Gohan do his thing with Piccolo against the Universe 6 Namekians. It was a really cool thing. I really did not like the recruitment process because I felt like it took too long. And it really just dragged on. It really wasn't needed. I think a lot of us can say that Kuririn and Goku's moment with the Kamehameha was kind of pointless. Seeing Goku run around having to have his episode involving Roshi and Ten Shinhan, I think was kind of pointless as well. So there were certain things that I found kind of repugnant because I just think that it wasn't needed to be told. But then you had great moments such as Goku versus Jiren. You had Goku having to square up against Kale. Kefla as well. Kefla, I think, was a fantastic fusion. Even though people hated her for all the wrong reasons, I felt as if one of the main reasons why people hated Kefla or Kale and Caulifla as a whole was because they were quote-unquote given everything too early, which you can make the argument and say, yeah, sure. But also we had, I think, the worst factor of the tournament, which was Ribrianne. I think that Ribrianne by far was one of the worst aspects of the tournament, alongside possibly Universe 4. That proved to be absolutely nothing. I mean, they had no significant impact in the show. And we also got some really cool moments, I think, from the dub as well, from the English dub. We had the debut of the Champa arc, where we got to see Goku go into Kaioken times 10 for the first time against Hit, and that was really cool to see. That was amazing. We had loads of awesome, you know, DLC content for Xenoverse, and we have fighters coming out in 2018. So for 2018, I really can't wait because, well, first of all, I can't wait for the conclusion of the tournament because that's what we're all waiting for. And what's ironic is we're ending the year off with like the biggest climax, and that's like the final 9 minutes of the fight. We have 3 versus 5, and I think that it doesn't get any bigger than that. And we're going to get the conclusion of that within the next couple of months, and then we're going to open up the doors for a new arc. On top of that, we're also going to go into the battle with Brian Drummett's Vegeta versus Christopher Sabat's Vegeta, which again, copy Vegeta versus, you know, Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, which is going to be fun to watch. Because for the first time, I believe we have 2 variations of 2 voice actors that played Vegeta on the same show, and we're going to have the debut of the Goku Black arc in the form of the English dub next year. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to. But also looking at 2018 collectively from like a story standpoint, if we don't get certain things happening now in the show, for example, if we don't get to see Ultra Instinct Vegeta, if we don't get to see Goku have his defining moment, like, what are your overall thoughts as to what we could see in terms of story going into 2018? For example, do you see this being the last time we'll ever see of Jiren? Do you see this the last time we'll ever see of the Pride Troopers? Like what are your overall thoughts on that? Because for me, I don't think this is going to be the last time we see Jiren or the Pride Troopers. I think that eventually they might bring them back, similar to how they did against Hit. And I also feel like, in some way, I feel as if the universes aren't going to be brought back. But then there's another part of me that says, okay, well, it's become way too predictable that they are going to bring them back. So going into 2018, like, what's your thought? Like, what are your overall thoughts on the story after this arc is over and done with? And in terms of the movie as well, we have a brand new movie dropping exactly 1 year from now in December. What are your thoughts and expectations for that film? And do you think it'll actually live up to its name, just like Battle of Gods and Resurrection of F?
Well, first off, okay, generally anybody who's become a great adversary for Goku ultimately ends up becoming a respectable, I don't want to say a friend, but someone he respects. They create a mutual respect between each other. For example, Hit was a good example of that. Hit was kind of portrayed to not really give a shit about anything, right? And then all of a sudden, well, he kind of respects Goku now because he's never really had a reason to try. He was the quote-unquote strongest fighter that Universe 6 had to offer. Then we got Goku. He fights Goku, and he's just like, wait a minute, hold on. I respect this guy now. He fights him again. You know, and then basically you could tell that there's a mutual respect between the two, a potentially developing friendship. I would argue the same could be with Jiren. But something about Jiren, he's kind of depicted to really not give a damn about friendships, about anything. I mean, I would imagine that kind of comes with the territory of being that strong. You kind of have to let go of certain things and, like, you know, distance yourself from everything. As showcased, for example, when we saw a glimpse of him training or meditating, he looked like he was in a complete, like, he was just in nothing, pitch black, darkness, nothing around him and stuff like that. So I think he's a cool character. But I think going into 2018, I would say, yeah, we're probably going to get the universes coming back. As far as what's to expect after this, I would say some downtime. Clearly some downtime after this because, you know, they kind of got to work toward, and it doesn't have to be bad filler. A lot of people want to see if Goten and Trunks will get some kind of play. A lot of people are expecting to see Oob come into play. I think all these scenarios are viable options. A lot of people want to see, you know, Vegeta go to visit Universe 6, Planet Sadala, for example. That's something that's been highly anticipated. I think right now people are anticipating the Oob arc, if we get one, you know, the World Martial Arts Tournament at the end of Dragon Ball Z. That's going to be, I think, probably the best quote-unquote filler that we could ask for right now. I think only because it will kind of solidify and tell people the direction that Dragon Ball Super is going. If we get the end of Z after the tournament or sometime close towards after the tournament, I would say, yeah, it really solidifies the direction that Dragon Ball Super is trying to go. And that once again, then from there, we could build our expectations or our hopes as to what may happen afterward. As for what I would like to see personally, I would argue, just like what I said, the whole thing, the World Martial Arts Tournament, I want to see that. I want to see that in Dragon Ball Super style. Hopefully Takahashi comes back and animates or, you know, handles the artwork for that. But I want to see things like that. I want to see more development. I want to see everybody feel relevant. I think arcs like those are what kind of allows people who are diehard fans of the series to really enjoy it more. And if anything, I think Dragon Ball Super as a whole, I would argue that it kind of depends on the diehard fan base to reel in new customers or to reel in new eyes, because word of mouth that's what social media is for, especially when you talk about it, for example, from a content creator's perspective. When we drop reviews, when we drop discussions, when we drop previews, when we drop theories, it's all word of mouth at that point. And to people who aren't, you know, actual fans of the series yet, they may stumble across a video, or they may have a friend that, you know, that watches Dragon Ball Super from Dragon Ball Z, from Dragon Ball, maybe Dragon Ball Z Kai, all this other stuff, and they kind of word of mouth, they recommend it to other people to watch, and that's how it starts. Because arguably, when Dragon Ball Super began, honestly, it did not do a good job at reeling me in, at wanting me to stay committed to watch the show. The only reason I even committed to watching the show is because of the brand name, because I know it's Dragon Ball. So I had no choice. I felt like I had no choice. I was obligated to watch it as a fan. But in 2018, I would really hope that after the tournament, they give us something like the Oob arc or maybe Universe 6. They don't have to give us Universe 6 right away, but they could work their way towards it. Definitely give us the end of Z, for sure, and work their way after that. That way we have hopes and expectations, and that way we could speak about it and probably spread the word of Dragon Ball Super, and then hopefully get more people to follow it. It gets better rankings, it gets better ratings. Right. And then going into 2019, that kind of insinuates the idea of whether or not they will continue. The same thing they did with Battle of Gods. They dropped Battle of Gods without, to my knowledge, without any intention of having a series. They saw that it did so well. They started the Dragon Ball Super series. We got another movie, Revival of F. You know what I'm saying? So it's all response, which is arguably the same thing that they're trying to do potentially with the new movie coming in December 2018. You might be ending the year with that movie to see how it does, and then maybe they'll decide, should we continue with it? Or
exactly, that could be the deciding point right there, because I mean, like many people said, like, where could we really go after this tournament, you know? Because the stakes are so high, it's like, what could you really wager that could put everyone in a predicament in saying, wow, okay, well, this is something that we can't really overcome. So I think, for me at least, comparing this year to last year, I would say there are certain aspects to where this year was better, but also I feel like last year had its moments to where it topped this year. And I'll give an example. The beginning of the Goku Black arc, I felt, was better than the beginning of the Universe Survival arc, because the beginning of the Universe Survival arc, you had lots of moments to where it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like it fit within the show. You had Goku running around doing all these things that were kind of pointless. I love the interaction between Goku and Daishinkan, and you know, Beerus having to threaten to Hakai him. I thought that was great storytelling. But I felt as if the Goku Black arc last year, with the introduction of this you know, very ominous enemy that was introduced, and you know, he wanted to establish his own utopia, but you didn't really know who he was. He killed Bulma, he went back into the past, fought Goku. That was pretty cool. And then once the Goku Black arc started to die down, they rushed it, and then we had ourselves a very incomplete ending. Here we start the tournament off, and it kind of started off a bit rocky. And what's interesting is, as we begin to die on down, it's like an all-out bloodbath. It's literally an all-out bloodbath to see what's going to happen with the characters. And I think that, personally, going forward into 2018, I think that 2018 is going to start very hot, because obviously we're going to start off with like one of the biggest battles ever. But I just really have high hopes for decent storytelling after this fight's over and done with, because I don't want it to be too predictable, but I don't also want it to be like something to where it's just like, all right, well, here you go, accept it, and then we're gonna move on. That movie that you just mentioned, it's going to be, I don't want to say it's going to be a make or break moment, but it's going to be very interesting to see if it's going to be canon, if it's going to have anything to do with like the main timeline, if it's going to be something, you know, offset, like in a different dimension, different, you know, timeline, whatever. And that's where I feel like things are going to be most interesting to see what's going to happen there. I know you're not really big into the Dragon Ball games, but what are your overall thoughts on Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 having a huge expansion with DLC pack number 6, including the Tournament of Power stuff? And I know that you said yourself that you're going to be getting Dragon Ball Fighters. What are your initial thoughts for Fighters, and why do you think that you felt more gravitated towards that game than any other previous Dragon Ball game? And do you see yourself playing it on your channel alongside, you know, just playing with fans? Because it's going to be a fun game to play. So what's your take on that?
As far as playing on the channel, I think if I feel obligated, like I have to play it on the channel, I think that's what will kind of shuttle me towards losing an interest into it. I want to play the game to enjoy it first. I want to develop a love for the game. Right off the bat, I will tell you that I did buy a Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2. You recommended it to me. Worst $59.99, I think it was, or something like that, that I ever spent in my life. I can't stand the game, bro. I don't know why. I just can't stand it. I played it for 5 minutes. I just couldn't stand it. It has nothing to do with like the Unreal Engine. It has nothing to do with that. For example, Dragon Ball Fighters is based on that to some degree. So it's like, it has nothing to do. Something about it, it just didn't feel like Dragon Ball. It felt like a totally different game with elements that were a little too over the top for me personally. I think Dragon Ball Fighters, the reason it's gonna be so great is because it's straight, it's simple to the point. It's straight to the point. There's no lead up to anything. It has its own story mode, yes, but generally, it brings me back to the Marvel vs. Capcom days, like the arcade, like the joystick, 3 or 4 buttons days, if you remember that.
Yes.
So
yes,
I used to go to the arcades a lot, on Steinway where I live, because I'm in New York. So there used to be a comic book store, an arcade store, two floors high, and it used to be called Strike Zone. And Strike Zone was basically like your Geeks Central area where you would go, you know, buy like the first edition like Pokemon cards.
Right, we actually have a variety store here that used to have that as well.
Yeah, and the top floor had like an arcade center where you can go play all sorts of arcade games. Marvel vs. Capcom was one of them. So we actually had a tournament, our Unreal tournament that you had was basically hosted by you, me and Devil Artemis, pretty much, you know, we commentated on that. We had that on my channel as well.
I remember, yeah.
So it's right off the bat, looking at a game like that, me being 28, it ultimately reminds me of growing up. So right off the bat, I am gravitated towards that. So I might be being a little, you know, biased towards Xenoverse 2. I think the idea of Xenoverse 2 introducing DLC with fighters coming out, ironically, it's too late. I think they're just trying to solidify something as towards like, okay, well, here's some extra content. You guys don't have to like it. Play it anyway. We know people will buy it. We know people will install it. We know people will create content on it. Yeah. We know Fighters is ultimately going to smash us. But if they think any kind of DLC at this point is going to rival Fighters right now, then I don't think that's their intention. I think it's a complete, I don't want to say it's a waste because, well, clearly people are going to buy it. People are going to download it. They're going to enjoy it. But I just don't see it. I don't see the intention of them releasing DLC as a means to rival or combat what Fighters may potentially have to offer. I think Fighters, the platform that it offers is completely different from Xenoverse 2. Xenoverse 2 is a little more easier to play in terms of like combat sequence and stuff like that. Fighters, it's like I said, Marvel vs. Capcom, amongst other games as well. You have to be It's about reaction. You have to be constantly, your eyes have to constantly be glued on the screen. There's only so far that you can travel on the screen. As for Xenoverse, there's an entire map. You can move. You can literally distance yourself from your opponent and just spam grapples and stuff like that. And like I said, I don't want people to bash me for it. But in a game compared to to Fighters, or to Marvel vs. Capcom, to Marvel vs. Capcom 3,
right?
You know, to games like that, Tekken, Street Fighter,
Mortal Kombat,
things like that. I don't want to like trigger anybody, but the skill requirement involved compared to the two games is drastically different, and that's evident when you play this game. You're gonna see there's a completely different skill set required to be able to play this game competitively. In terms of competitive play, in terms of just casual play, both the games are equal. You don't have to be good at it. You don't have to be bad at it. You'll get your money's worth. But I think ultimately, when it comes down to Dragon Ball FighterZ, this is one of those games where they've introduced enough content where DLC isn't even really needed. That's what makes the game so good. As for Xenoverse, kind of relies on DLC at this point. It kind of relies on mods to get itself really going. Dragon Ball FighterZ, by default, out of the gate, it has people at the edge of their seats by default. No DLC required.
Yep.
And people are already excited for it. And that's what really sets the playing field for these two games. And as far as me playing it, I am going to play it. I am planning to. As far as me playing on the channel, I don't know. I can't make any promises. If people want to see me playing it, that's fine. I just think there's going to be so many people playing it regardless. Maybe even people who aren't even fans of Dragon Ball are playing it. For example, I think I watched a video on YouTube with Rhymestyle was featured on it with Maximilian Dude and some other guy. I forgot his name. But they were playing it. I think Maximilian Dude kind of mentioned that he wasn't really a fan of Dragon Ball itself or the games until FighterZ came out because of the platform.
Yeah.
So I think because of that, it's really going to draw a lot of people's attention. And for people who weren't even fans of Dragon Ball to begin with, they may become fans now. And I think that's why Dragon Ball FighterZ by default is, even though it hasn't been released yet, it has a lot more potential than Xenoverse 2 could ever hope to have at this point in time.
I definitely am very excited to see what 2018 holds. I mean, in terms of content-wise, from Super's going to offer, I think, the best content it's ever had so far within the first 3 months. After that, it's going to be questionable because we have no information as to where to go from here. FighterZ is going to be awesome. I mean, I gravitated towards it after a while, because when I first found out about it, I was like, well, it reminds me of Mugen, it reminds me of, you know, the classic arcade games. Not that there's a problem with that, but I was just so adjusted to all of the 3D games like Budokai Tenkaichi and you know, games of that nature, Raging Blast, Xenoverse, and I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna give this game a chance. And after playing the beta and stuff, it just felt great. It was a great game. And I do want to say, like, hopefully enough, looking back on this video next year, we get to say to ourselves, you know, how great of a year it was. And I do have lots of high hopes to seeing what's going to come. But let us know your thoughts down below, guys. If you guys agreed or disagreed, if you guys, you know, had any of your favorite moments come about in the show, what were they? What were some of the things you guys hated, or, you know, just essentially grew towards liking? Because, like, when Kale and Cauliflower were first introduced, not many people were gravitating towards them, but after the show, you know, went on and we saw them fight Goku and whatever, people started to gravitate towards them a bit more than how they were first introduced. So let us know your thoughts on everything that was just said, guys. Thank you all once again for watching. If you guys are new, punch that subscribe button, guys. Turn on notifications. Also subscribe to EmoshIs channel. The goal is trying to get, I mean, the goal for Emosh, I think, is going to be to try to at least get to 25, 30,000 subscribers.
Let me tell you something right now. I don't care about the subs. I'll tell you this right now. I'm not saying I don't care about my subscribers. What I am saying is that I just want YouTube to get back on track. Okay? I just want the watch time. I want all that stuff back. Forget the subs. Can YouTube fix itself, please? I want people to be notified when we upload videos. I want you guys to be able to be involved and know that we uploaded videos, stuff like that. So the demonetization thing really needs to fix itself before we even establish any kind of a subscriber goal. I think at this point in time, YouTube really needs to get back on track. And then we can start talking about, okay, guys, let's break 25K. Because having 25K and then like 5,000 views means nothing.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
but anyway, guys, yeah, like I said, just watch the videos. That's all we could ever ask for. Forget the subscribers. You guys don't have to subscribe. You guys don't even have to like the video. Watch it. Leave your thoughts in the comment section, and that by default will really help us out.
Hopefully. You know, I mean, I'm really hoping that YouTube gets their stuff together, because it's been a very rough year. I mean, ever since January of this year, when the whole thing with PewDiePie came about in the apocalypse. But we're gonna sidetrack there. So thank you all so much for watching, guys. Once again, we hope you guys enjoyed. Tune back in for more. Happy New Year, and we'll be seeing you all down in the comment section, guys. Have a great day. Peace.